Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Australia's Tabletop Wargame Network once again. As per usual, I'm ScottyD, and tonight we've got the New South Wales Masters 2025 tournament preview for you guys. We are joined by Greg, the TO. How you doing, mate?
Fantastic, Scotty. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, not a problem at all, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your week to jump on to talk about New South Wales Masters. It's going to be a great tournament. I'm really looking forward to it this weekend. And we've already got some of the crew in chat. We've got Glaves and Lost Crusader and Shazakiller, like all you guys. Some of them already calling for the pods to be released. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to announce. Yeah. Happy to tell you all, we will be releasing the pods this evening during the stream. So don't stress about that. But as per usual, guys, we do this live if you are watching this back over on YouTube. And if you don't manage to catch all of the live stream, it'll be posted up on our YouTube channel on Thursday morning. So you can catch it before the event as well. It's going to be a really fun tournament. I'm going to be there. Hopefully my offsider Ben is also going to be jumping on commentary with me as well. It's going to be a great tournament. So yeah, but to start off with, Greg, why don't you do a little bit of introduction about yourself, for a quick background, how long you've been in the hobby, what factions you play, etc.
Right. So I've most people in New South Wales that know me now, I think, but I've been in the hobby for my first game of Warhammer was in 1996, I think. Wow. But gaps between there, right? Like the same old story. I've been competitively playing for solidly 3 years now. And that's mostly been around New South Wales and mostly focused around elves are my first love, right? Of all flavors. But been on a real GK kick the last couple of years, trying to get some power armor. And then in terms of where I stand in the community at the moment, I'm the New South Wales rep. That role is there to kind of support the New South Wales team and make sure they get to the ANZTC every year. Make sure we're putting our best foot forward there. But I think in New South Wales, it's kind of taken on more of a real community figurehead kind of thing. And I think we're really pushing these last couple of years to build a solid community that doesn't just involve the very top of the pinnacle. It's we're trying to expand that and get everybody involved, make a real New South Wales brand.
Yep, definitely can see that. Even just from the outside looking in the past I've been involved with, can definitely see that. You as some of the other guys put a lot of hard work in on that. So it's definitely commendable to you guys for all that work and the shape that the scene in New South Wales is in. It is, when I look at the scene around the country, I would have to say from my personal experience, New South Wales is probably one of the healthiest scenes that, I've been a part of, which is great.
Yeah, it's really, really pleasing to see that, right? And I think even in this last year, I've met more people through 40K, right, than I've met through any other channel. And just to see the scene grow and to have an avenue for all these people to interact and engage with the competitive side of Warhammer is just phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. I know we were hanging out a bit at Uprising. We were talking a bit about how the Inner West Hammer guys have kind of just jumped into the competitive side of things relatively recently as well. And, that's a great effort from their community leaders, but also yourself and how welcoming the competitive scene has become.
And I think there's a whole nother tier to it there as well, right? Because I think if we look at the tournament calendar for this year, there's it's absolutely ramped, right? And there's 2 RTTs a month, there's a GT every month, there's multiple teams tournaments going on. And I think that kind of gives us space to let those people that are just just testing the water, right? Just dipping their toe in, to dip their toe in at an RTT level and not have to deal with your Jords and your Alex as their first game, right?
Yeah.
Not that those guys are not lovely, but you don't always want to go to a tournament and just get crushed in the first round, right? So
yeah, for sure.
I think the scene is big enough for now that it's supporting that, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, 100% agree. Definitely. In the efforts that I know multiple groups across the state are trying to do that as well and foster that, whether it's Pete and the guys out in Western Sydney, down under 40k guys. Alex with his GTs, the guys even up in Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour as well, getting RTTs happening for their scene. It's really encouraging to see all of that going on across the state. So I guess let's jump in to start talking a little bit about Masters. What's kind of the motivation? Because Masters has been around for a little bit. A lot of people may be aware of the concept of what a Masters tournament is. Some might not be. So kind of like, what is the basic gist of a Masters tournament? Kind of, the history of it in New South Wales to the extent that you're aware of, and kind of the core values that you're trying to foster with it for this year.
Yeah, okay. We might have to take this in like a couple of different steps because we've changed it a bit.
Yep.
But the core idea of Masters was part of that original role. And the goal was to have ANZTC be the pinnacle of teams, and then have an Australian Masters tournament be like the pinnacle of solos, right? And so historically that was run individually by the states, and then they'd send their master to the country one. The country one only ever happened like once or twice. It was not, it didn't really get off the ground. And historically they were run as like really elite competitive tournaments, right? So there would be, here's the top 16 people by the ITC ranking, or here's the top 16 people by like tournament win rankings or whatever it was. And they would go away, they would play this game, and like that would be it, right? The issue with that is that like, we are social beings, and like we want to engage with more people, right? Like the reason GTs and stuff are so popular is because we're like, you've got exposure to a lot of different players, you've got exposure to a lot of different play styles and armies. And if you just lock the top people away in a room, right, like they're gonna have, that's their practice weekend anyway, right? So that's like not really going to show you anything new, not really going to develop anything. So what happened historically with those Masters tournaments was that those 16 people would be selected, and then as soon as they lost a game, they would just drop the tournament, right? Because it didn't mean anything anymore. So like Nathan Princey tells a story of the one time that he went, right? Like he got a bye in round 2 because so many people dropped that he didn't have an opponent in the second round of Masters, right? Like, and it's like, it's understandable because like, why am I traveling for this tournament that's only 16 people, that has no like outside recognition, that doesn't really have anything, right? So that's kind of like the history of Masters and what it was trying to be. Now that national Masters doesn't happen anymore. That's not a thing. The requirement for the reps to run Masters is not a thing anymore. So it's just something that I'm trying to foster again in New South Wales, and see if we can build a kind of a different type of tournament that interbreeds the competitiveness of that top tier with the mid tier, with the lower tier, right? Like try and get more people involved so that we're all getting exposed again, and trying to have a tournament structure so that that forces that interaction. Because a lot of the time when we do go to tournaments these days, the first 2 rounds are pretty random. After that, you can pretty much tell who you're going to hit in those top like 20 or 30 people, right? So that's why this structure is a little bit different than it would be normally in a tournament. And the other thing I'm trying to do is really promote the upper tier of competitiveness in this tournament, right? So that, like, what I'm trying to say by that is that the full tournament is done by WTC rules. We're doing WTC scoring. We're doing compulsory clocks. We're doing like all the things that you'd expect at a top table are just there, like they're part of the tournament pack, so that like there's no misunderstandings, right? Like we're here for this thing, right? That all makes sense?
Yeah, it does. One thing I'll just throw out in chat, Greg, maybe turn on a background light. You're just getting a bit dark.
It's getting so dark, isn't it?
Because we got a few crew in chat pointed out. There we go.
I don't know if it's better or worse. But
that's better. That's better, mate. So
now you can see me, Derek. Love you.
Yeah, Palitech as well, jumping in. But yeah, no, some of the guys in chat are saying that they love the effort that you've just described being put in as well. You know, you're making sure that mandatory clocks, WTC rulings, all that kind of stuff, as well as reaching out to players and inviting players as well, that it, you know, making it this, you know, not necessarily like this kind of similar to what you were describing about previous Odd Masters, right? Where it was like the top players in the country just go, they all know each other, that's the thing. It's kind of like, no, you've pulled a lot of players from across the state as well, or at least tried to. You know, there's a couple of players from down this way that are heading up from Wollongong, which is great. You know, different parts of Sydney and such. I'm not sure if there's any like from further up north or maybe down Wagga Way and such as well that from what I could tell, there maybe weren't, but there's definitely, you know, as the scene grows in those areas, there's that opportunity, right, as well.
Absolutely right. There was a couple of guys invited from those areas this year, but like nobody could quite make it. But what I'm hoping is as well that we can like start this framework and then build on this framework, right? So I'd love for this to not just be purely competitive as well. I would love for this to be, I'd love to invite all the like the top painters from all the tournaments, and I'd love to invite all the top sportsmen from the tournaments and make it like a real showcase of like the best of all parts of Warhammer.
Yep.
And try and like bring that Renaissance Award back into it, bring that like sportsmanship award back into it in like a more meaningful way. So that's the long-term goal, right? But this is like the stepping stone to get there. Like this is the first year, we're trying to figure it out, and then we'll just keep improving.
Yeah, for sure. I love the fact that you mentioned the Renaissance Person Award. That is one of my personal favorites because it, you know, you don't have to be like one of the top painters, right? But you also don't have to be like one of the top gamers to win that award, which is why I love it, because it rewards someone who is actually equal at both, or, you know, around that. They can play very well. They can paint an army quite well. Yeah, and so that kind of thing I love seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So I reckon with that little bit of history, a little bit of kind of goals of what New South Wales Masters, you know, what you're hoping it to be in the future. Let's jump into talking a bit about the players pack. And of course, OBS is going to do a dumb thing on me and swap the source, because it likes doing that to me. But we do have the overall pack here. I'll just shift it over a little bit here that we have got. So just to walk through the players pack for those at home, the tournament structure, there are pods for the first 2 rounds. So do you want to kind of talk about how you've gone through the process of creating the pods? What's kind of been the methodology of actually going, okay, how are we putting people into each pod? Is it going to be, you know, are we doing, you know, I'll let you describe it because there's a bit in the players pack, but I'll let you jump into it.
Okay, so the original thought behind pods was that one of the other things that happens sometimes in tournaments is that your most competitive game will be round 1 or round 2, right? Like BCP gods will frown on you and you'll hit somebody that is your kryptonite in round 1, and then like you'll submarine your way to victory after that, right? Like potentially, right? So what we were trying to do is like find a way where we can intermingle those top players with the mid and lower tier players, so that those first couple of rounds are like not just like warm-up rounds for the best players, but also the rounds where the mid-tier players can like show their moxie and like go and tear down a big name, right? Like go and have their like round. So we've broken it into small pods. The pods are only 4 players. And we've done that by your ELO rank currently, right? So once the final roster was locked in, we took a dump of the ELO from StatCheck, and we took everybody's rank from that, and then we've seeded people. So there's seeds of 10, because there's 10 pods. The first seed is just straight rank from left to right, 1 to 10. And then every layer after that, we've randomized it within that seed. So if you're seed 1, like player 1, you're not going to play player 1 in seed 2. You're going to play one of the 10 from seed 2, right? And randomize it the whole way down so that we get a bit of a mixture through there. And then that's broken down. We've ended up with 10 pods of 4. And then the first 2 games in the event will be based on those pods. It will be player 1 versus player 3 and player 2 versus player 4. And then it'll be player 1 versus player 2 and player 3 versus player 4 for the first 2 rounds. After that, we'll go back into a Swiss tournament with people ranked on what their scores happened from the pod, right?
That's very interesting. Because in my mind, the way that I kind of thought you may have done the pods is gone that, first 1 through 10, but then done the second seed is 11 through 20 then and go down the line, and also with the pods making them Swiss within themselves. But I really like the way that you've done that. Actually, it kind of encourages the, as you were saying, it gets the top players playing against people that maybe they might normally face in those first 2 rounds after getting a big win round 1, quite possibly. And it does give those lower players, like, they'll still play against each other within that pod, but at the same time, 2 of the 3 of them are still going to be able to play against the top player. So, yeah. It's really solid. I quite like that. I really like that.
Yeah. I don't think it's right for every tournament, right? But I think for this one, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, in terms of other things we already mentioned, so you've got WTC differential scoring rather than just straight battle point scoring. So you've got that 10-10, 11-9 kind of thing. So you've got to make sure you're winning your games by more than 5 victory points or more to get that win. WTC rules and WTC FAQ, as we've mentioned, and chess clocks. Brilliant. We'll get into a bit about round times. That'll obviously influence a bit of the clocks and how they will work as well. Rules cutoff was last Tuesday. So, sorry, no Eldari Codex. So that's
all right. I'm not playing this weekend. So
yeah.
Which for one more.
Yeah, I mean, we'll also see, in the meta breakdown, the impact that has, right? It's held at the Padstow RSL. If you've been to Padstow before, you know it. It's a pretty good venue. Greg's your TO, which is awesome. Shoot through questions ahead of time as well. Then you've got the all the ticket sales and stuff. We don't necessarily need to go through that, but we'll go through sportsmanship and player conduct. So when we have a look at this, it's these are becoming a lot more common in players packs nowadays. I think it's actually a standard that should be in players packs. So I guess, do you want to just kind of go through a little bit of a Cliff Notes version of what you've got in the sportsmanships and expected player code of conduct?
Yeah, so I think when you say it should be in most player packs, I think most people expect it to be know what to expect when they go to a table these days, right? And I think that sportsmanship's components are really about just reinforcing that and going we are all here, despite it being competitive, for the enjoyment of the game, right? We're not here to try and crush somebody else or trying to give somebody else a bad day. And so we should be ultimately playing so that everybody walks away from the table happy, right? There will be standards in there. There will be things don't touch other people's models. Don't be aggressive unless there's just don't be aggressive. There's no reason to ever do it to an opponent or to anybody else, right? And also my understanding of sportsmanship is that we should all be working together for the a decent outcome of the game, right? I shouldn't be trying to apply my rules in a way that disadvantage you or advantage you or whatever. We should be working, me and you versus the game, that we get a solid understanding, right? I'm going to be as active as I can, just getting around the venue. So I'll always be in arm shot. And if there's concerns, if there's problems, just call it out. Let me know. And if there's something that happened in the game that you weren't happy about, I'd also ask people just to tap me on the shoulder after the game, go, look, I felt uncomfortable about this, or this made me feel wrong, right? And it doesn't have to be in a way that's like negative to your opponent. I'm not trying to like badmouth people here, but it does. I think we need to foster this community where we're like just talking about things when they're not right?
Yeah.
So that we can just like build an understanding of what is right and wrong. So I hope that encapsulates what it says in that sportsmanship section, but like that's kind of my feeling around that component.
Yeah, for sure. Like I've held an interesting, very similar view actually to what you described, where, both players, whilst their armies on the table are versing each other, when you're playing the game, you're playing with someone else, right? Just because, the force on the table and, it's in a competitive setting and everything, you still want that enjoyment, right? You don't want to walk away and have a terrible game and be like, oh, that's just ruined my entire weekend, right? Because you have one bad interaction with someone, that could just be down to a misunderstanding. There could just, that could just happen. Or, there could be something more untoward underneath that, of course, which, TOs then take action and handle that. But at the same time, that idea that you're playing with your opponent and you both want to walk away having a great time and a great experience is a great kind of baseline that I think everyone's slowly starting to get to. And I would say it's probably one of the higher things that I've seen in the New South Wales scene that has come to kind of the forefront in the past year to 2 years as well. That people are understanding like, no, like, this is a game, sure, but we're here to play with each other. We're not, sure, the game's oppositional in its nature, but we're playing together to resolve it, right? So let's actually do that, which I think is, it's great to see and great to foster and great to have.
And like at the end of the day, right? 40K is a game where there's no hidden knowledge. There's no like little secret things that you keep under your like drawer that like surprise people. And the more that we can understand that, the more that we can just get to this point where everyone just like explains what's happening on the table and we both understand the game state, we both understand the table state, so that we're both playing at the same level, right? It doesn't actually detract from the competitiveness, it adds to it because you can resolve these game states quicker. So I think like sportsmanship's key in driving that competitiveness forward too, in a way.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely agree. All right. Let's jump in and talk a little bit about the missions and the schedule, because they're kind of on the same table, so it's hard to talk about one without kind of talking about the other. So starting off, Rego on Saturday is 9 to 9:30, so not a super early start, but a decent start. Now for round times, looks like you've gone for 2 hours 45-minute rounds.
That is correct, yeah.
So I guess with the clocks, what's kind of your perception on where players should be using their time and what's the allocation that they should be aiming for?
So the way it's laid out in the W2C guidance is that like you should put the clock on as soon as you get to the table, right? With whatever is left on your clock, or left on the round time, and just split it evenly from the get-go, right? That's not the way I always do it. Like I actually prefer to do the like discussion about armies and like depending on their army to potentially deployment to get those bits out of the way and then just go. So I'm happy for players to be a little bit flexible in that space. But I think the key there is that the timer will be on BCP. If I've got some way that I can show it at the day so it's up on a clock on a wall too, it's the player's responsibility to make sure the clocks marry up to that timer, right? So if you do it after deployment, it should marry up exactly to what BCP says and it should be split evenly between the two of you.
Yep, cool. Yeah, I'm very common to that same level where you go, okay, keep that early discussion off, even depending on how long that takes, even deployment. Typically, when I do it, I'd say 15 minutes for list discussion, deployment, setting everything up and all that. And then you get an hour 15 each, which ends up being the 2 hours 45. Just kind of put some numbers around that is kind of what I would personally, do normally. But yeah, sometimes going through those lists, particularly if you've got a relatively complex army, maybe you're going up against GSC, for example, they've got a lot of things that can take a little bit longer. So being aware of that as well can play into that too. So going into round one, The mission is search and destroy, so table quarters, with raise banners, so battle line can get extra points on each objective, and then linchpin, so hold your home for 3 points. If you hold your home, the middle and your opponent's worth 5. If you don't, they're worth 3 instead. Really solid, high-scoring round 1 mission. Then,
great warm-up.
Yeah, 100% agree. Like, I always like having, from my viewpoint, it's always good to have a high-scoring mission first, because then everyone's like, cool, I know that there is a way that I'm going to get a relatively high score round 1. That means I'm starting off the weekend on a high. There's nothing worse than going to an event and starting off with a mission that you end up scoring like that the kind of average is relatively low. And it's like, well, okay, cool. I'm kind of in the muck of it with everyone else, couple of even scores and things. Whereas linchpin kind of really sets that to be, no, it could be really high, but you've got to fight for it and stuff as well. Then for lunch, an hour-long break for lunch, which is nice. Any kind of rationale behind that, or just wanted a bit of extra time for the players?
Bit of extra time. One thing that I'm not sure is made abundantly clear is that we are changing maps between missions on this one. And while I'll endeavor to help out the tables as much as I can to get that sorted, it will be like an onus on the players to make sure the table is set up correctly. So if we know who we're playing in round 2, we can transition to that earlier if people want to go and set up the table before the round actually starts. So that hour-long lunch, I think, gives us like time for everybody to get to the cafeteria, get their schnitty, get back and set up the next table, hopefully.
Yeah. You could, for example, you could even courteously, if you finish a game relatively early, you could even actually set it up during the current round as well, right? So then that way it saves that time for the next people who are on that table, which is another way you could do it too.
Great point.
Yeah. So next round 2, is sweeping engagement. So staggered Dawn of War with Stolt Wards, which is, I believe it is shoot and fighting combat and action for battle line units. And then Purge the Foe, which is kill 1, kill more, score 1, score more. Old school.
Yeah. I love this as round 2 because this is the more competitive round in the pods. So it is really going to kind of reward people that know how to play Purge. And then sweeping is a deployment that doesn't show up much, right? So this is one that like maybe people haven't practiced much. So hopefully we see some upsets. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. I personally do enjoy sweeping as well. It's good fun. I preferably as well, I do prefer it when it's just the straight line like Crucible. I did prefer that version of it, but it's still really, it's a great variety deployment as well. That's not just Dawn of War where you set up on the line basically and go at each other, right? So yeah, then we've got Schmutt in chat just asking why New South Wales events are always 2 hours, 45-minute rounds. A lot of guys in chat jumping in. It could be venue dependent. It could be TO preference, things like that. So there's a lot of different reasons as to why 2 hour, 45-minute rounds are a bit more preferable. Maybe, Greg, you've got some insight from your side of things of why you might think that's the case or why you maybe have that for Masters.
So I think 2 hours 45, right, gives you both after talking out lists and stuff. Say that's 15 minutes, right? You've still got an hour 15 each on the clock. Which I find is a good split for people. Potentially it punishes those like kind of really hoardy lists a little bit more, but I think 2 hours 45 is a good break point. If we need to, we'll push to 3 hours. Like, as I said, this is the first event. We will see how we go. But sometimes those super long days like hurt the best of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. So... I just wanted to address that whilst we were kind of talking about round times and start coming up in from chat. So next up for round 3, it's just basically as soon as you finish round 2, you're straight in round 3, which is great. The round 3 is Crucible of Battle. So it's your angled hammer and anvil style. Hidden supplies, so an extra objective on the table for 6. And with Scorched Earth. Really solid.
Again, an interesting one, right? Like, there should be one where primary scoring is pretty high. So it'll be about pushing kind of that secondary differential more than it'll be about attacking people's primary.
Definitely, because, you know, both players can reliably score 50 on primary by just holding 2 objectives and then turn 4 or 5, go out, burn 1, then the next turn burn the next, end of game happens and you get your 50, right? It's also the first Swiss round as well, so I think it's good to have that kind of high score potential round 3 as well for those who maybe don't do super well in their pods, because then it's like, okay, cool, I'm coming out, maybe I want to get a higher point score, and maybe Scorch is that opportunity for them to go and do that.
Yeah.
Then for day 2, a little bit of a later start. We're starting at 10 o'clock in the morning for Rego, 10:15 round start, which is going to be very quick on the stream side of things. Basically fire straight in as quick as we can. In terms of the mission, you've got Tipping Point, which is your staggered hammer and anvil. Fog of War. Now, from memory, this is the one where you get to pick a unit that is under 500 points to put in a strat reserve. No, different?
No. This is the no strats on turn 1. And everybody gets it.
Yep, that one. I always get that one in Smoke and Mirrors.
Smoke and Mirrors is the one. Yeah.
And Palitech, thanks for the info, brother. Appreciate that. A bit of an early entry for me as well, which would be nice. And then the primary mission for that one is Burden of Trust. So there's a lot of discussion. We've talked about it as well, kind of offline and in person and stuff about Burden of Trust. But I'd love to actually get you to share your opinion on Burden of Trust and what your thoughts are about putting it in as a round 4 mission.
So I think Burden is a very complex primary mission, right? And I think it doesn't always work out the way you'd expect it to from a primary perspective, because you're only scoring midfield and then only scoring guarding on your home field most of the time, right? Depending. A lot of the time, this is one where you're only expecting 30, 35 points from primary, maybe if you're controlling the game, and it's one that really rewards attacking that expansion objective. So I have mixed feelings about it, right? Because I often play armies that are not great at that, but I think it is valuable in this kind of format, because what we're trying to do is test all kind of army format, right? So Tipping Point probably rewards those kind of pressure armies that like to front to back you, and Burden kind of plays into that a little bit too, right? So where maybe if you hit that orc army on round 2, right, you're comfortable, but if you hit it on round 4, maybe you're not comfortable. So this will be a real test of that kind of top bracket, I think.
Yep, definitely agree. Definitely can attest to having played Burden multiple times. Just not being able to break 30, 40 points can feel rough. So it's definitely it's challenging to the skillful player to be able to go, okay, how am I actually going to score high in this mission? And, maybe you don't, of course you can test primary and you get as many points of primary as you can, but maybe you're focusing more on your secondary game and trying to max your secondaries to 40. And then the primary game is where the game is won or lost, kind of thing as well, right? So it'll be, that'll be definitely interesting to see how that game goes and the split of everything. And then the final game, back on Search and Destroy table quarters, nice and simple for the last round. Inspired Leadership, which is basically this mission pack's Chilling Reign, because it hardly has any effect unless you're playing up against Chaos Knights or Demons, which there are some around, or Tyranids as well, because it's +1 leadership to your Warlord and every unit within 9 inches of him from memory.
Visible sign or something.
Yeah, something along those lines. And then Take and Hold.
And deployment zone as well, just because it needed an extra caveat.
Yeah. So, and Take and Hold. So hold 1, hold 2, hold 3, all for 5 points apiece. So really straightforward mission to finish off the weekend.
There's actually a little dichotomy to talk about there, though, right? Because those armies that you talked about, the Chaos Knights, the Nurgle Demons, the Tyranids to a degree, right? The ones that get punished by Inspire Leadership. are the ones that love taking hold, because they can just like stomp through the middle and go like, I'm scoring 15s, what are you doing about it? So potentially there's like balance there.
Yep, for sure. Which is really nice. I think it's nice to have that little bit of balance between those two. All right, so that's the missions. Obviously, you got half hour for prizes and stuff. In terms of prizes, you've got first, second, and third place, as well as best sport and best painted, which is really solid. Then, in terms of model requirements, basically WYSIWYG is enforced. Must be recognizable, identical dimensions if they're alternative sculpts and such. As well, no proxies, and all conversions have to be cleared by you ahead of the tournament. So players should have realistically done that by now, right?
Yeah, and most of them have. I've had a fair few of those. It's been totally fine.
Yeah, perfect. Then we've got the round timing chess clocks. So we've already kind of talked a little bit about this, and it does have a little bit of a breakdown for you guys in terms of like how each game's timing should go, in terms of 10 minutes for your intro, discuss armies, getting set up, 5 minutes for secondaries, attack, defender, and 2.5 hours for your game time. So that's all in the pack for you guys as well as the code of conduct, which is linked. So if you need to have a look at code of conduct around chess clocks, that's there for you to check out if you're not too familiar with playing with chess clocks as well. Now, we'll get into talking a little bit about the terrain, because it is WTC terrain. They are all medium tables. So they've got the 4 3-story ruins and the 6 2-story ruins with 4 containers, I believe. 2 stacks of 2.
2 lots of containers that are stacked with 2,
yeah. And so each one's kind of, they're on screen for you guys at home, but they're kind of tailored to the deployment as WTC does them for, all of their side of things, which is really nice. So they're kind of, angled. Won't go through them too much. I'll just kind of, scroll through. Rounds 1 and 5 are the exact same. But also there's some interesting things here with certain missions. Like, for example, Burden of Trust. Your natural expansion objective's relatively well protected to be able to get onto and guard pretty easily if you're able to get the units over there to do that. If we look at hidden supplies scorched, obviously that middle objective is going to get shunted towards the top left and bottom right, and so it'll kind of be sitting in that ruin. So pretty, like, that middle center one for each player is going to be relatively easy to get to and stage at, whereas the more towards the table edges is going to be a lot harder because they're on the outside of a ruin, which means your opponent has the chance to approach it with impunity and then engage onto it to counter you. So that's actually a really interesting dichotomy when it comes to that setup for those objectives.
That split is the way it works out. It makes you feel safer from shooting armies. It makes it much scarier against like melee pressure armies, though.
Yes.
That gap between those 2 center ruins is not very big.
No, it is not. I think that is like 5 inches. If I was to think from memory on that map, maybe 4.5. Not far at all. Sweeping engagement, both the edge, the left and right hand side objectives got some parts in terrain, so you can kind of hold them from cover, but then you're relatively exposed then as well. And the center is relatively open for the midfield objective on that one for Purge the Foe. So it really kind of means that you're kind of balancing that. If I throw a unit out to score more points on, holding more, my opponent could potentially score more points on kill more. So it's kind of, you got to balance that at the same time as well, which I think is quite interesting. So yeah, I think all the tables pretty well balanced. Most of the time you're able to hold your home from cover, which is nice. It's good to have that. So yeah, I think all great layouts for each of the missions. It'd be great to see how they are played on the table. So now we get to the fun part, Greg, to where everyone has been screaming at us basically to release the pods. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here are your pods for New South Wales Masters 2025. And we'll go through each of these. And so they kind of, you've got number 1 is that for players 1 through 10 for each of those pods. And then everyone else is kind of filtered through as we discussed. So In pod number 1, you've got Jordan McGregor as the first seed in there. And then you've also got Andrew Sherman, Matt Hearn, and Jake Mellon. It's a interesting pod there, knowing that in that you've got Imperial Knights, Orcs, Ash Militarum, and I think I won't
Two Ash Militarum.
Yeah, I think Matt is playing guard as well, because I know Jake is. So yeah, really interesting there. Pod 2, you've got Alex and Glazos, who is your top seed in that pod. You've got Joseph Kwan, Jackson Flinter, and Brett Martin in there. So you've got Alex on AdMech, Joseph Kwan is on GSC, Jack is on Nurgle Demons, and Brett is on CSM. So that's actually a really diverse pod. I quite like that.
It worked out that most of the pods were pretty diverse, I think. Like, it's been a good little spread.
Yeah. Pod 3, your top seed is Josh Brody, who did come third at Uprising, if memory serves me correctly.
Yep, we did.
Submarined his way there, I believe. But all credit to him for that. Then you got Dan Sherry, Matt Lane, and Alex Stone. So Josh is running the Accursed Cultist Dark Commune bricks in a CSM list. Dan is running Grey Knights. Matt Lane is running Reaper's Wager Drakari. And then Alex, I cannot remember for the life of me what he is running off the top of my head. So apologies, Alex. So Custodes. Palitex got me in chat. He's running Custodes. So again, relatively a diverse pod.
Yep.
Which is nice. Pod 4, your top seed is Nathan Princey. Then you've got Cooper Fitzgerald, Adam Woznowski, and Liam Flanagan. So Nathan, still on the Weeders. You got Cooper is on Tau. Adam, I believe, is on Custo. Pardon, Greg?
He's on Imperial Knights for this one.
Oh, he's on Imp Knights. Nice. And then Liam is on Space Marines. Yep. As well, I believe Blood Angels.
Correct.
For Pod 5, you got Woody Woo as your first seed. Then you got Sean Bauman, Eva Urso, and Dex Ranger. Now, Woody is running Stormland Space Wolves, which he's relatively well known for. You've got Sean, who's on the Votan, Eva, who is on World Eaters, and Dex, from memory.
Eva's back on the Drakari for this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Because, yeah, there was 2 Drakari in the breakdown. And Dex, apologies, I can't remember again, unless you got it, Greg.
Chaos Demons.
Chaos Demons. Nice. Pod number 6, we've got Michael House as your first seed there, with Todd Wedmeyer, Tim Sunderland, and Dan Gash Jones in there. So Michael is back on the T-Suns. Todd is on the World Eaters. Tim is on Orcs, and Dan is on Ultramarines in there with Gilliman and Marnius Calgar. So it's a pretty staple Ultramarines list at the moment for the double oaths. Pod number 7, you've got Arian Fanian, Kirby, Alex Rimmel, and Pat Spooner. So Arian is also on Ultramarines. Kirby is on Blood Angels. Alex is on Firestorm Salamanders. And Pat is on Imperial Knights. So, an all-Imperium pod.
Damn doing with the Space Marines.
Yep. Pod 8, you got Richard Hill as your top seed there. Samantha Eisen, Michael Higgs, and Alex Bunge. Apologies if I mispronounced your surname there, Alex. So, Richard is playing Death Guard. Sam is playing Chaos Knights. Michael is playing Ash Militarum, and then I believe Alex is also playing Marines of some form.
No, he's on the Death Guard.
Oh, he's on Death Guard as well. Double Death Guard pod.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Pod number 9, Jay Mann is your top seed in here. Then you got Peter O'Neill, Zach Futura, and James Middleton. Now, Jay is running Tau Empire as well. Peter is running Chaos Demons. Zach is running Chaos Knights, and James is running Tyranids.
Yeah.
And
love that one.
Yeah, that's a 100% agree. 100% agree. Pod 10, last pod, you got Pulse, in as your top seed, you got Ben Cookies, Michael Rootguy, and Tim Wallace. So you've got Pulse running GSC, Ben Cookies is running CSM, Michael is running, I believe, Votan?
No, I think he's on the Demons. I think he's changed.
Yes, I think he is on Demons. I think he's on Slanesh.
Slanesh, that's right.
And then good old Timmy Wallace is on his guard, as you can expect.
That's not what. Yeah.
Yeah.
Never seen.
So there is your pods for everyone in attendance that we're going to go through. But having now talked about the pods and talked about the factions, let's actually talk about the actual meta breakdown in general for you all, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know why that did not hide what I was hoping it should hide. There we go. All right. So your meta breakdown, we're going to go through this, and it's actually relatively well spread out for the most part, particularly when we hit a certain point. So Space Marines, you got 6 players in attendance making up 15% of the player base, with 2 Blood Angels, 2 Ultramarines, 1 Salamander, and 1 Space Wolves. So relatively diverse within the Marines, but at the same time, you know, a little concentrated towards either Ultramarines or Blood Angels because they're doing quite well at the moment.
Yeah, about what you'd expect to see from Space Marines, I think.
Yeah.
We don't have any Vanguard, do we?
No, there is no Vanguard.
Which was interesting. Uprising was like a lot of Vanguard, right? So
yes.
New South Wales already doing it different.
From memory in the Uprising meta breakdown, I think Vanguard was first, and then Gladius was just behind it by 1 army.
Yeah.
So there's only one difference.
Might be a difference between GW versus W2C terrain, right? Because there's definitely more firing angles on GW, but still a big difference there, I think. Yeah,
for sure. In terms of Imperium, 10 players in attendance making up 25% of the player base. You've got 4 for Astra Militarum, 3 Imperial Knights, 1 Adeptus Mechanicus, 1 Adeptus Custodes, and 1 Grey Knights. So no Imperial Knights, and importantly, no Sisters.
No Imperial Knights. We've got 3 Imperial Knights.
Oh, agents. Sorry, I meant Imperial Agents. No agents.
Right. Yeah.
So I still think it's pretty good. Like, you know, not too surprised to see guard players jumping onto them with Bridgehead. We did see them perform quite well at Uprising.
You say that, but most of those guard players are like guard for life, right? So we've got a solid Astra Militarum community, right? Can't say the same about the Imperial Knights players, particularly one, but like we won't mention him here.
Yes, he jumped from an army that is not in this section onto them recently. We joke, Jordan. We joke. All right, then we come to Chaos, which is 14 players making up a whopping 35% of the player base, which is the largest super faction. You've got 4 Chaos Demons, and then you've got 2 players for each of Chaos Space Marines, Death Guard, Chaos Knights, and World Eaters. You have got 1 Emperor's Children and 1,000 Sons.
Who's the bad lad on Emperor's Children?
That'd be Ben Cookies.
I love it. He's getting ahead of the game.
Yep. Yep. So the good thing here is that outside of, I think the variety is present. Demons particularly will have some variety in their detachments, but I think outside of, you know, Death Guard is just all the same detachment. Worldies are all the same. Chaos Knights are all the same. Chaos Space Marines and Demons are where there's the variety at the moment for them, which is good to see, but, you know, also player count is attributed to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's good to see that there's a healthy representation from Chaos, though, like across all the factions, right? It's really good.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I could have folded in Emperor's Children into Chaos Space Marines, but, you know, if I pull out Ultramarines and Salamanders, why not do the same with Chaos Space Marines at the moment, right?
Yep.
Seemed fair, right? Then we go to Eldari, where there are only 2 players in attendance, 5% of the player base, and there's no Eldari, as we previously mentioned, but there is 2 Drukhari. So yeah. Good to see some players still playing them.
There's about 3 Eldari models represented in there. So, like...
Yeah.
we still count.
Yeah.
I imagine that's a number that's going to change pretty drastically in the coming weeks, though, right? Like,
yeah. With the codex being released, I think it was Saturday just gone. It'll come like
no, it's like while we're playing, it'll be released.
right, yeah, because they do 2-week pre-order window now. It's wild. Sometimes their website tells you it's under new release, but it's still on pre-order. But yeah, it'll mean that, you know, March events, which there are 3 big events happening in March in New South Wales, there will be plenty of Eldar players in attendance, I'm sure. Then we get to Hive Mind. You got 3 players in attendance with 7.5% of the player base, 2 Genestealer Cult players, and 1 Tyranid player. So, not too surprising. You know, obviously we've mentioned who the GSC players are, and they're quite good on GSC.
Mm-hmm.
Then we come to Xenos, which is 5 players in attendance, making up 12.5% of the player base. You've got 2 Orc players, 2 Tau Empire players, and 1 Leagues of Votann player. Interestingly, no Necrons.
No Necrons, but also, like, I feel like that representation seems a little low, but I don't particularly want to hit any of those players, right? Like, they've all been repping those factions a lot, so potentially people to watch out for in that sneaky little bracket.
Yeah, definitely agree. You've got a few sharks that play those Xenos armies. So coming to the faction podium, Ashmil, Tarim, and Chaos Demons both have got 4 players in attendance for their factions, making up 20% of the meta. You've got Imperial Knights coming in with 3 players in second place, making up 7.5% of the player base. And then there are a lot of factions, too many to actually list in third. I think it's 10 factions that have got 2 players, making up 50% of the player base, guys.
Love it.
Which means that the faction podium is made up of 31 players. If we took out the third place stuff, it would only be 11 players for 77.5% of the meta.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. That is absolutely wild to me. So, let's jump into talking a little bit about the detachment breakdown. So, and I just understand what I did wrong there. Earlier, I pressed the wrong button. That happens sometimes. For detachments, we've got Space Marines and Imperium on the same page here. Both Blood Angels lists are Liberator Assault Group, which not unexpected. Ultramarines are both Gladius lists. Salamanders is Firestorm, and then Space Wolves is Stormlance. So they're all kind of basically fitting in where you'd expect them to fit in detachment-wise for Marines at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
For Imperium, Ashmil Tarim are all 4 Bridgehead. For Imperial Knights, all 3 are Noble Lance. Adeptus Mechanicus is Halo's Creed Battleclade. Adeptus Custodes is Shield Host. And Grey Knights is the Teleport Strike Force.
There you go.
Yeah. Really interesting. And, you know, Palitech in chat saying, Halo's Creed requires the Halo ODST to be played every game. I've been successful in doing it this far so far. Glaves, no Warpbane for you. Oh, don't tell me I got that wrong. Don't tell me that I got that wrong, chat. If he's on,
I wouldn't that's super surprising if he hasn't gone like Warpbane.
If I've misrepresented it, I didn't get that wrong. I will.
What's in the list?
I will double check it real quick just to make sure I'm not going insane. Because I did these in a rush this afternoon, guys. So I just want to make sure. Yeah, it is Teleport Strike. It is Teleport Strike. So, but yeah. So, you know, really interesting. Checked his crow. Yeah. All right. So now let's jump into Chaos and see what Chaos is doing. So Chaos Demons, you've got 2 on the Plague Legion, 1 Demonic Incursion, and 1 Legion of Excess.
Yeah, interesting. Super interesting.
Yeah.
Legion of Excess was everywhere down at Uprising.
Yep.
Super cool to see it not penetrating New South Wales so much.
Yeah, definitely agree. seeing demonic incursion still being played as well is quite good. Shows that the changes to that detachment that were made recently are helping it out as well. For Chaos Space Marines, you've got 1 Creations of Bile and 1 Renegade Raiders. So Creations of Bile is the new Grotmus detachment for them, but also Renegade Raiders is the most stable detachment that we've seen for Chaos Space Marines since the Codex was released.
That Raiders list will be the AC/DC one.
Yes. So. Yeah. Death Guard, you got 2 plague companies, which is kind of interesting. At the same time, it's also not. So the newer detachment does give infantry that, scouting and all that fun stuff, give them a bit more mobility up the board. But plague company just seems to be a staple at the moment.
Yeah, I think the Grotmus detachment is much better in a kind of teams world where you can dictate your matchups. But I think the plague company, with its essentially 12 months of buffs, right, has just to a point where it's pretty hard to turn down.
Yep, definitely agree. Chaos Knights, 2 Traitorous Lancers.
As expected.
Yep. World Eaters, 2 Berserker Warbands, as expected. The Emperor's Children is running Veterans of the Long War.
Yep. Oaths for Chaos. Love it.
Yep. And then Thousand Suns, Call of Magic, as expected.
Yep.
So pretty expected meta out of the Chaos super faction outside of your demons, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Then next up, we're going to jump to the last super faction slide, which is Eldari, Hivemind, and Xenos. So for Drakari, we've got 1 Sky Splinter Assault and 1 Reaper's Wager.
Yes, man. Love it.
Yeah. I think, depending on how things go, we might see Matt on stream round 1, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe. We'll see. Because I want to see how this detachment goes. I want to see it, I want to see how it goes. So it'd be interesting to see. Then for the Hivemind Gene Steal Cult, you've got 1 Biosantic Brood Surge and 1 Host of Ascension. Which is really interesting. Looking at the way GSC meta's kind of adapted as of late, some people have jumped onto Final Day, which is the GSC and Tyrannid detachment. Some have, kept with Outland Claw, but some have jumped onto the Biosanctic Brood Surge. It used to be called the Muscle Beach detachment in terms of 9th edition. So this is basically all your tough boys. But yeah, it's good to see it actually seeing some play in New South Wales.
Yeah, and they play very differently, right? So the melee pressure of Biosancting is very different to the kind of swarmy board control of Host. And that's very different to Final Day's kind of long range shooting power, right? So you got to kind of understand the detachments a bit more with GSC and understand how to play into them different. It's good to see we've got diversity there.
Yeah, definitely agree. Tyranids, Crusher Stampede. That's interesting.
Big boy time.
Yeah.
Gotta respect it.
Yep. The Hulken boys coming out to play. Orcs, both are on Tactical Brigade. I don't think we're surprised by that at all.
Yeah. We should just count them under the Astra Militarum numbers too,
right? Yes. All the Orc players would have a conniption over that, though. For Tau, 2 on Auxiliary Cadre. This detachment is strong for Tau.
Yeah.
I
played it for the first time last weekend, and I was impressed. It's actually a great detachment.
Yeah, and I think with how the Tau Codex has been as of late, with only the 4 detachments that you can kind of play, this actually breathes a breath of fresh air into what they can do in their Codex as well, right? And so kind of gives them what they were hoping the Kroot detachment was for the actual Codex itself, where basically all the auxiliary stuff can spot for you and stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think the core problem with Tau is that the 2 stronger detachments, the Monkar and the Galleon, are only on for half the game, right? So as an opponent, if you know that, you know when to press or when to just run away and hide. Whereas at least Ox Cadre is on the whole game, so they get to interact when they want to interact.
Yeah, for sure. And then Leagues of Votann is on the Oath Band. Not too surprising there. So, with all of that covered, all of the detachments, I think it's a pretty good suite across the board. A lot of the newer stuff is being played from Grotmus, and also a lot of the staple stuff that we've been seeing for the edition so far is also being played, which I think is really great. All right. So, with that covered off, let's talk about some of the lists, shall we? And let me just... Oh, come on. You're going to have that. Nope. Oh, gosh. It's deciding to do its dumb thing again. There we go. OBS, why you do this to me? Cool. So, first up, we've got Alex Englezos's Adeptus Mechanicus Halo's Creed. So, if you're not familiar with how Halo's Creed works, basically you pick 2 units during the command phase. I don't want to click that link though, Alex. Alex in chat just like, click on that link. So you picked
play the Halo song, isn't it?
I swear it is. You said it's safe for work, so I will open it in a different window entirely so that it doesn't do a weird thing for me. Otherwise, it will be a problem. Oh, it's a script by Jerry Seinfeld for the B movie. That's good, Alex. That's good. Okay, so basically he can give 2 units buffs, basically for what he wants for that turn. So he's got a Tech Priest Engineer that is Warlord. He's got a single unit of Skitarii Rangers with all the kit. I'm not going to go through all the individual pieces of war gear here. He's got 3 units of Skitarii Vanguard, 3 Scorpus Dune Riders, more than likely carting around the Vanguard. He's got 2 units of 9 Taraxi Sterilizers, a single unit of 3 Cerberus Raiders, 10 Sicarian Infiltrators, 2 units of 10 Sicarian Rust Stalkers. Nope, the Rusties. I now see that. Yep. No, 3 units of 10 Rusties. Yep. And then 2 Scorpius Disintegrators with the Thermarite Cannons, which is the anti-tank. So a pretty staple AdMech list that we're seeing here from Alex.
Staple for Alex. I don't know if you're really seeing this outside of New South Wales at the moment, but it's been a real kind of stalwart list for him, right? Like lots of bodies to kind of push forward to control space, lots of kind of like either counter pressure with flamers or with like mass dev wounds in combat. A lot of kind of 2 wound bodies with 5 up in ones, and then all backed up with just like 2 great shooting platforms with 2 up saves, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's a really solid list, so it'll be really good to see how he goes with this one. I would rate it pretty highly. He said the most melee AdMech ever, is he saying in chat? Which there is a lot of melee in this list.
Well, and he's into the melee GSC and into the Nurgle Demons for his first 2 rounds, right? So interesting, very interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. Then, for our next list, we're looking at Jackson Flinter's Plague Legion Chaos Demons.
Yes, this is the one that Alex is getting round 1.
Oh, I didn't even recognize that. When I pulled it, I was like, oh yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll do this. And it's like, oh no, I picked 2 from the same pod, which is what I wanted to avoid.
No.
Oh well, it is what it is. So, Plague Legion real quick. I'm going to pull it up because it's one that you mightn't be too, like, in general, folks may not be too familiar with. So basically, it's whilst you're within 9 inches of one Nurgle Demons unit, you're within the army's Shadow of Chaos, and in each player's command phase, select 1 unit that is 1 enemy unit that's within the Shadow of Chaos. They must take a battle shock. So you're constantly forcing battle shocks on your opponent here. In terms...
That's not the only source of them either. There's a bunch of other sources on the list, but
yeah,
like there's the battle shocks going off.
Yeah. He's got a Demon Prince of Chaos with the Droning Shroud. And what this guy does is whilst friendly Nurgle Demon units are within 6 inches, they have the 18-inch line up.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Epidemius, the Great Unclean One with Font of Spores, which is whilst friendly Nurgle Demons within 6 of the bearer, they get +1 AP to their weapons, which is good for combat. You've got 3 Poxbringers. You got Rodigus, who is the Warlord, and Sloppity Pileviper, who has got the Cankerbright, which is each time a enemy unit, not monsters or vehicles though, is within 6 inches of the bearer fails a leadership check. The bearer can use this enhancement. If it does so, one model in that unit is destroyed, chosen by the controlling player. And each time the bearer uses this enhancement, no mortal wounds are inflicted by your army's demonic terror rule. So you're trading the random mortals that you would do for just killing one model off. So it's kind of situational, depending on whether you're going to end up just killing a model that's on 1 wound anyway, or you get more value out of killing something that's like 4 wounds, like say a Deathwing Knight or a Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminator, right? So it'll kind of pay off there. Then, in terms of battle line, a unit of 6 and a unit of 3 Nurglings, and 2 units of 10 Plague Bearers, a unit of 5 Fleshhounds in a Nurgle detachment, but they scout and stuff, so...
Yeah.
I know, yeah. I'm just stirring the pot here. No, they have a place, right? They scout, they can screen off some first turn charges kind of things. They can do early secondaries and things like that as well. They definitely have a place. 2 units of 3 Plague Drones, and then 2 Soul Grinders. So you've got 4 big bodies there. Because you've got the Rodigus, you've got a Great Unclean One, and you've got the 2 Soul Grinders, and then the next biggest body is the Demon Prince.
Yeah, or probably the Plague Drones. They take up a lot of space too, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's a lot to get through.
Yeah, it's a lot of T5 or higher. A lot of stuff. Really interesting. So, Hounds don't scout. Okay, Pally. Too easy. Thanks for letting me know. They might. They've got what do you call it? They have the collars that are. They do stuff against like Psychers and stuff and anti-Psyker.
Anti-Psyker, feel no pain. They're just fast little units that move through walls, right? Which is something that Nurgle doesn't really have access to. Yeah,
outside of spending a CP to send a monster through a wall, Kool-Aid Man style.
Yeah.
All right. So next up, we've got Jay Marn, who is running the Auxiliary Cadre Tau Empire. So he's got a Cold Star Commander that's got Ion, High Burst Cannon, and double missile pods as the Warlord. And then he's got a Kroot. Let me just find this detachment real quick so I can pull up all the stuff for it. He's got a Kroot Lone Spear that has got the Fanatical Convert enhancement. So what this one is, it gives the bearer the For the Greater Good ability. Nice. He's then got a unit of 3 Fire Knife battle suits. So they've got the missile pods there. A single Ghost Keel. 1, 2, 3 Hammerheads with Seekers and Railguns. Sorry. All of them got Seekers. There's 1 Railgun and 2 Ions. That's an interesting change. He's got 10 Kroot Carnivores, 2 units of 5 Kroot Hounds, 2 units of 3 Kroot Rampages, and then he's got a 10-man unit of Pathfinders with the kit, 2 Razor Shark Strike Fighters, and then, is it going to be 3? Yeah, 3 units of 3 Stealth Suits, and 2 units of 5 Vespid. There is some stuff in here I have not seen since 7th edition.
Man, Razor Strikes, like, where did that come from?
Yeah. Like, that is so left field that it's just like, okay, sick. Like, it's good to see. There's staple stuff in there as well. You got the stealth suits there for spotting. You got the Vespids that can do your action stuff in from Deep Strike. Your Pathfinders, Crew Docs Rampages, a really interesting choice, kind of to do some melee work. If you need it to kind of, maybe use them to throw some pressure against a pressure list to kind of go, hey, I'm going to throw these at you to slow you down coming into my guns. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting list with a lot of units. It's very MSU. Very MSU. So
great to see you guys, man.
It's good to see Tau back because they were hardly represented particularly in the New South Wales meta for like 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's great to see, Cooper Fitzgerald is the other Tau player who's playing Auxiliary Cadre as well. It's great to see both of these guys who are Tau mains back on their faction and playing again. Next up, we've got Kirby, who is running his Blood Angels Liberator Assault group. He has got Captain with Jump Pack, Power Fist with Speed of the Primarch. I've got to remind myself of this one. Let me find it real quick. It's not the Sustained 3. I know that much, because that is Rage-Fueled Warrior. Let me find it. Speed of the Primarch. Once per battle at the start of the 5 phase, you can use it. They have fights first. So, Palitex also got it in chat, so thanks, brother. He's got Mephiston, who is his Warlord, and Dante in there as well. 1, 2, 3 units of 5 Assault Intercessors with Jump Packs. A single Bile Predator with the Flamestorm Cannon and double Heavy Flamers. 5 Infiltrators with the... He does not have the Helix Gauntlet or Comms Array on that unit. Interesting. 2 units of 3 Outriders. 2 units of 6 Sanguinary Guard. A single unit of 5 Scouts with a missile launcher in there and some other pieces. And then 2 Vindicators. Very staple list. But yeah, I think seeing the double Sanguinary Guard brick is interesting. Normally, I'm used to seeing only 1 brick with Dante, but seeing the second one in there is going to be interesting to see how that performs. Double Vindicators, pretty staple at the minute. I do like Outriders, as we were talking pre-stream. Outriders hit hard in Liberator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're really good.
So putting out a literal smack ton of damage to attacks on the charge is huge. The Bile Predator is really good for early game skirmishing because you just send it midfield and you just go, cool. You want to move within 12 of me. I've got all of these flamers. I just got to auto hit you with all this stuff.
Even 18, that main flamer hurts, right? So you don't want to go near that thing.
Yep. The JPIs are really solid for skirmishing as well, or doing secondaries if you need it, but I don't think you really want them to be doing that in this list. You want your scouts and a few other bits and pieces to be doing that. And then character suite is usually pretty solid as well. So yeah, I reckon this is a really solid list from Kirby.
Yeah, I played against this, not quite this version, against Kirby not that long ago, and he's since put the Vindicators back in, and I think that makes it this kind of real, gives it the real ability to punch in 2 phases, right? And I think it's a pretty scary list in the right hands.
Yeah, for sure. It also allows the Vindicators to soften up a larger combat target. So say something like an ACDC brick, for example. You can shoot the Vindicator in at it with Oaths, do a ton of shots and a ton of damage before sending in, 2 units of the JPIs or sending in the Sangard or whatever he decides to send into it to finish it off in combat. It's one way that he can deal with those bigger, tougher units, as well as just combo those pieces to do the damage that he needs to.
Yeah.
All right, and then the last list for this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is Matt Lane's Drakari Reaper's Wager. Oh, baby. This list... Scari's been running Reaper's Wager recently, and he's a bit hot on it, so I'm actually really keen to see what Matt has decided to put together for his own Reaper's Wager. If you're not familiar with the Reaper's Wager, what it allows you to do is take Harlequins in your army list up to 1,000 points. At the start of the battle, Drakari are winning the Rager. Now, each time a Harlequin unit destroys an enemy unit, the Harlequins are winning the Wager at that point. And it just flips back and forth. When a Drukhari unit kills something, it goes back to them winning. And now whoever's losing the wager gets a buff. And the buff is that they reroll hit rolls and wound rolls of 1. So there's ways that you can manipulate it in terms of who's winning and losing at the point in time. And it depends on what you've got in your list and such as well. But it's a really interesting concept and I like it. So what Matt is running, he's got an Archon in his Warlord that has got the Arch Raider enhancement. What this one is in the declared battle formation step, if the bearer starts embarked within the dedicated transport, the dedicated transport has Scouts 9. So that is going to be a very fast moving Raider or Venom. He's got a Beastmaster in there with all the Beast Pack fixings, Lilith Hesperax, and Urine Rakath. Urine Rakath is one hard character to kill. He is...
He's got no with either. He's just rocking solo, so he's your piece you throw out and go like, do you want to come fight me in combat? Because otherwise I'm just going to res on the point and hold more primary, right? Like,
yep.
Great little tech trick.
For sure. He has got a single unit of 10 Cowboy Warriors with the fixings and a unit of 10 Witches, which is probably where Lilith is going. He's got a single Raider with a Dark Lance and 2 Venoms with Splinter Cannons. He's then got a Court of the Archon, which is more than likely where the Archon is going, into then maybe another unit or just solo. Not certain off the top. Just looking at the list so far. A unit of...
with the Cabalites and then split the Cabalites with the Venom so that you can put the Archon party in the Raider and then just the whatever's left from the Cabalites.
Yep, that'd make sense. That would make sense. You've got 6 Grotesques, so beefy boys. 10 Hellions, okay. We're looking at 2 units of 5 Mandrakes, 2 units of 5 Scourges, 1 with all Dark Lances, the other with all Haywire. And then the Harlequins units, he has got 1 Solitaire. He has got a unit of, I believe that is 11 Harlequins in a troop. And then the Troop Master has also got the Reaper's Cowl enhancement, which gives the unit, the bearer's unit, stealth and infiltrate.
Sick.
Oh,
that big troop right on your doorstep, and then that Archon party bus is coming at you fast, and so's the Beastmaster. Like, that's a lot of elves in your face, turn 1.
yes, that is going to be very interesting. Yeah, that's actually wildly good. Like, especially in terms of being able to control who's winning the wager at this point, because what you'll do is, because Drukhari start off winning the wager, it means that you activate first with your Harlequins, and then you sequence it, so then you activate with your Drukhari again, then you go into combat, and then you charge in with the Harlequins, you fight with them first, so then they get the buff, and you flip back to the Drukhari. There's this dichotomy that you can just really just trade the buffs back and forth, but you've got to sequence it well. So I think it takes a really skillful player to actually pilot this detachment quite well, and I think Matt has played Harlequins and he's played Drukhari for a while now. I think he can do it.
Yeah, and like, there's a couple of things to keep in mind with that too, right? Like that big block of troops probably has 4 fusion plus a fusion on the Troop Master, so 5 fusion as well. So it's not a slouch in shooting. So there's a potential to flip there before we get to the combat phase. And then when that Solitaire goes off, he's 12 attacks, hitting on 2s. He'll be losing the wager at that point, right? So he'll be rerolling 1. So he's pretty consistently going to go in and tear something apart when he does. So you've got some real, like, solid reliability to do that. And then if that's not working for you, just back it up with pain tokens from the Drukhari side, right? And then your Archon blob gets full rerolls anyway. Like, you're totally happy. So great list, great set of stratagems in that list too. So, like, very, very scary.
Yeah, definitely is scary indeed. So those are kind of the 5 lists, but to wrap up, Greg, who do you think in terms of faction or detachment is actually going to take out first place this weekend?
Don't do that to me. It's outrageous. I would have said GK, sorry, but he's on Teleport Strike Force, so there's no way he's winning now. Such a solid Chaos representation. We've got to back something in that space, right?
Yeah.
House on T-Suns is always a big threat, so like that's probably right up the top of my list. So is Joby on Cat Space Marines. Like they're both kind of scary.
Yep.
Pete on Death Guard potentially. Like there's a lot of melee pressure in there, right? If he hits the right matchups, he could get through pretty quickly. Something in the Chaos space. Can I just pick all of Chaos?
Sure. We'll go Super Faction. Makes it fun. I think for myself, I actually think that something in Xenos.
Oh yeah,
is gonna get it.
Love it.
But between Tau and Orcs, particularly.
Yeah.
One of those two, I think, with the new detachments they've gotten and the not necessarily the strength, but the life being breathed back into Tau in particular, and those players being diehards, jumping back on them, knowing their factions inside and out, I would not be surprised if either the Orcs players or the Tau players get up pretty well over the weekend. So those would definitely be my pick for the Super Faction for this weekend. As much as I love Matt Lane's list, I was like, let's just go Xenos, something a bit different. But yeah, before we kind of wrap up for this evening, Greg, do you have any shout outs that you'd like to make to anyone in general?
I think like a little bit on the soppy side, I think I'd just like to shout out to the New South Wales community. I think everybody has like pointed in the same direction together this year, and it's been really kind of inspiring to watch that, and kind of watch all the like different parts of New South Wales start to come together. I hope we can just continue on that journey over the next couple of years. It's going to be great.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we will. Like, I think everyone's working together towards that same goal. We have a very unified scene, which is, you know, again, as I said, a testament to the work you guys have already done. And I think the work that you guys have already laid that foundation of is just going to continue to get stronger and stronger as we go forward into this year and future years as well. But ladies and gentlemen, that is actually going to be it for us this evening for our New South Wales Masters 2025 tournament preview. I want to thank everyone who has joined us in chat. It's been absolutely wonderful to be able to talk about the tournament this weekend for you guys. Now, if you aren't attending New South Wales Masters, we will be streaming it live on the ATWN over on our YouTube channel. So make sure to head over there. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I've just thrown up the socials links in chat. On that link tree is where you'll find the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to check out the tournament coverage over the weekend. We'll have myself and hopefully one of our guys, Ben, on commentary with me, which is going to be really great to have. Thanks to everyone who's dropped the follows as well this evening or before the stream as well. It's been absolutely great. Greg, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Pleasure, mate. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem at all. And ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't catch the entirety, don't stress. It's going to be up on YouTube on Thursday morning. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And I hope to catch you on the weekend for the New South Wales Masters 2025 live coverage. We'll catch you then, team.